Of all the parks here at Walt Disney World, rope dropping Hollywood Studios is my absolute least favorite. This shouldn't come as a surprise to any of you because I talk about it all the time. But something has recently changed that we're gonna check out today. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And like I said, welcome to Hollywood Studios, where today we're rope dropping, something that I definitely don't enjoy doing here at Hollywood Studios because they've changed the process of rope drop. At least that's the scuttlebutt. So we're gonna go investigate, see what it's like, take a look around, and see if it changes my mind when it comes to rope dropping this park. Now, as we're making our way in, it definitely doesn't look like it's a light day here at Hollywood Studios, so I do think that this will be a good test. We'll see how it goes. All right, we just got through security, and as you can see, looks very different here than it usually does when we rope drop Hollywood Studios. All right, it's 8:41. We've made our way into the park. We did have to wait a bit. The family ahead of me ran into some problems getting their tickets all situated, which is a good reminder to try and get yourself organized and get all that squared away before you get to the turnstiles. You know, it makes everything less stressful for everybody, including you as the family. So it did take a bit to get in, but honestly, I'm not even mad because we're still in the park way ahead of when we would have been with the previous process. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about that while we make our way around the park. So previously, getting into Hollywood Studios looked a little bit different. If you wanted to rope drop the park, everyone who wasn't a resort guest would be held at those turnstiles waiting outside the park until the park officially opened to day guests. So in the case of a day like today, that would be 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., they would start scanning guests in and then letting them into the park, which could mean a significant wait to actually get into the park, sometimes like 20 to 30 minutes. And of course, you're standing in line that whole time, which no one wants to do to start their day, you know? And this isn't the way it was forever here at Hollywood Studios, but it's what we've been dealing with for the past however many years. But recently, and by recently I mean very recently, Disney has returned to their pre-pandemic method of getting guests into the park ahead of the park opening to day guests. And what that looks like is that everyone can get into the park, but when you head to an attraction, you're gonna have your Magic Band or ticket scanned. This lets Disney know if you're a day guest or if you're staying at a Walt Disney World Resort hotel and are eligible for early theme park entry. It's very similar to what we see over at every other theme park, actually. You can make your way through the turnstiles, make your way into the park, but at some point there's gonna be cast members there checking your qualifications. In fact, we can see that right over here in front of Rock and Roller Coaster. So as you can see, there are cast members there checking Magic Bands and then letting those guests who are eligible for early theme park entry in, while other guests are waiting in a line for the rope to officially drop. Now, it does look a little bit different here at Hollywood Studios than it does at other theme parks here at Walt Disney World, and that's mainly because Hollywood Studios is set up a little bit different from the other parks, just because of the layout, you know? Whereas at other parks, like Epcot, for example, there's like one way in and then an easy place to block things off. Here at Hollywood Studios, there are a few different routes that you can go. So some areas, like this area over here, are completely blocked off if you aren't eligible for early theme park entry. Other attractions like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which are right out in the open for everyone, they're gonna check whether or not you have access to that attraction with early theme park entry before you get in line. This is very similar to what they do for special events. So this isn't really all that new. It's really not all that different, unless of course you've never experienced this before, but it's a pretty streamlined process, pretty easy to understand, nothing too new, but a slight adjustment. We still have about 10 minutes before the park officially opens to day guests, so I'm gonna skedaddle on over to the other parts of the park. We'll take a look at what it looks like over there with this new process and give you a better idea of what to expect. I will say though, it definitely feels like a much more casual start to a day here at Hollywood Studios. I mean, I know I'm more relaxed because I didn't have to stand in that long line, in some cases in direct sunlight. A lot of other people have already made their way into the park, so the crowd is dispersed nicely. I'm happy, at least based on what we've seen so far. We'll see what it looks like when we get to the other parts of the park. Now we're making our way past Minnie and Mickey's right now. Like I said, we know how this process is gonna work, so I'm not gonna bop on over there, but I do want to see what it looks like if we want to head down this direction. It looks like we are being directed away from the stairs, so I wonder if we're going to be checked right here. We'll take a look, see what the situation is. So far, nothing yet, no checks over here. They might be checking us a little bit further down the way. Not entirely sure why we can't go down the stairs right now, but we'll see. Does look like there's a line right here. This is probably the line for day guests. And I bet just beyond the line is where they're gonna check credentials for early park entry. All right.
We only have to stand in one person per party, so please keep your parties together. Anyone not staying at a Disney resort, you're going to join this group over here on your right until 9 o'clock.
All right, so I don't know how well you were able to hear that cast member who was on the microphone, but there was a line off to the right that was for day guests waiting in that line until 9 a.m. And then there was a line off to the left where resort guests could go and tap in with their credentials. So that's very similar to what we see elsewhere at Walt Disney World. Pretty standard stuff. Let's see if we can make our way to the other side before rope drop though. We've got like 5 minutes and I think we can do it if we hustle. But I do want to give you a look at what it looks like over there as well. I'd imagine that it's going to be a very similar process, but never hurts to check. Also, as you can see, we do have a tiny crowd walking this direction, but it's really just a couple families in front of us right now. Very chill this morning. Very chill because people can just meander at their own pace. Not the mad dash that we're used to, that's for sure. All right, so we're approaching Star Tours right now, which is gonna be very similar to Mickey and Minnie's. They're gonna check your Magic Band before you go in. And then as we come around this corner, I bet we're gonna be stopped. Check it out though. A little bit of artwork on the ground. Super cool. All right, let's see what the situation is as we make our way around here. I hope we didn't miss it. Oh, we may have. It is 2 minutes to rope drop, so they may have let people in. Oh no, I see the line. All right, so we're gonna hang back right here because the cast members are directing us that direction. But as you can see, here's the line of day guests. And then if you're a resort guest, you can scoot up past this line and have your credentials checked. All right, well with that, the park has officially opened for the day, and that means we need to take a breath because I've been running around. Got here a little bit later than I wanted to, so I didn't have as much time as I would have liked to have. Nonetheless, we still saw everything that we needed to see. Hopefully you have an idea of what to expect if you're planning on rope dropping Hollywood Studios, but let's just go over everything once more. And of course, I want to share some of my thoughts with you. So once again, here at Hollywood Studios, we are seeing a new process to get into the park for rope drop. Again, rope drop, for those of you who might not know, I'm sorry, I kind of just breezed past this earlier, basically just means getting to the park before it opens, getting into the park before it opens so that you're one of the first guests to actually get in line for an attraction for the day. Here at the Walt Disney World Resort, guests staying at Walt Disney World Resort hotels and other participating resorts do have access to the park 30 minutes prior to day guests, but it is still a great idea to try and rope drop your park of choice. And that's always been a little bit difficult here at Hollywood Studios, but with this new process in place, I think it's a little bit easier than it used to be. It's certainly a lot more convenient than it used to be. It's a lot more relaxed than it used to be, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So at least right now, the way that this process works is that everyone can get into the park prior to its opening time. Today, that time is 9 a.m. But of course, make sure that you're checking the schedule during your visit. If you're a resort guest staying at a Walt Disney World Resort hotel or another participating resort, you can absolutely enjoy attractions 30 minutes prior to the park opening to day guests, but you are going to have to move through checkpoints in order to prove that you are staying at one of those resorts. Those checkpoints in some cases are right at the attraction, like in the case of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. They're also ahead of lands. For example, today, like we saw just before Toy Story Land and just before Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Guests who aren't eligible for early theme park entry will have to wait in a separate queue if they so choose. Of course, you can just shop, wander, and hang out elsewhere if you don't want to stand in line like me. And then when the park opens to day guests, again today that time is 9 a.m., but check that schedule, you'll have access to all that the park has to offer, just like you would have otherwise. The only difference is now you can be inside the park prior to the park opening, which I think is fantastic. Now, there's always a conversation of if you're waiting in line over here or you're waiting in line over there, what's the difference? For me, especially in the case of Hollywood Studios, the main difference is that the length of the line, the amount of time you're waiting in that line, is vastly different if it's outside the turnstiles versus inside the park. And this is because, just like we experienced today, sometimes guests who are entering the park, they don't have all their tickets situated, and it does take a little bit of extra time. Sometimes guests run into problems getting through the turnstiles for one reason or another. And when that process starts right when the park opens to day guests, you lose a lot of time. I mean, like I've said in the past, sometimes the line can go really far back, taking up that entire area between security and the turnstiles that will get you into the park. That can take 30, 45 minutes depending on the day, depending on the season. If the guests are more seasoned, you know, they've been here before, or if it's their first time visiting, all of that plays a role in how long that process is. But letting guests into the park prior to the park opening to day guests gives guests a head start, which I think is fantastic. Guests like me who want to arrive early, we can already get in ahead of the rush. And guests who don't want to arrive early, they arrive a little bit later, they're not hung up in this line of people who arrived before them that are struggling to get in because they had to wait until the park officially opened. For me, I mean, like I said, this is a welcome change. I like the vibe, I like how much easier it is, and I do think that this is going to be a better experience for everyone, which is why I hope that it sticks around. Now I know what you're thinking, hold on, Kat. What do you mean sticks around? This is a change in the process. Well, yes, it is a change in the process, but I've heard some sources saying that this is a test. And you know, Disney tests things sometimes. They're here today, gone tomorrow. So I'm hoping that this works out well and that it does stick around. Of course, this was the process prior to the past few years, especially when Galaxy's Edge first opened, because you had to be in the park in order to get a boarding group. Do you guys remember that? What a nightmare. But anyway, as always, I'd love to know what you have to say. Is this something that you're excited about? Is this a welcome change in your opinion? Tell me all about it in a comment down below. Also, let me know if Hollywood Studios is your favorite park to rope drop, or a park that you prefer rope dropping and why. Also, one more question before we go. What attraction are you heading to first? I want to know. So tell me all about it in a comment down below. And of course, have a fantastic rest of your day wherever it is you are. Until next time, guys. Bye.